Thanks for joining us as we kick off another new week of all things people, power, and politics. This is The Pulse, and I'm Charlie Langton. The political news never stops, and that was certainly the case this weekend as senators reached a tentative deal to reopen the government. While breaking down what's in that deal, the key part that's missing, and the divide it's exposed in the Democratic Party. Oakland University political science professor Dave Dulio taking a deep dive with us tonight. And then when we've talked about the impact of SNAP benefits being in limbo, it's mostly been about the people receiving them, and that's good reason for that. But there's another angle that you probably haven't heard about, and that's the business angle. And with the owner of Ronnie's Meats and Eastern Market, he says that, well, there's a battle there as well. But the government shutdown is where we start tonight, because over the weekend, the Senate took a major step toward reopening the government, and that's after a moderate group of Democrats broke rank and agreed to reopen the government without guaranteed extension of those Affordable Care Act subsidies that they fought for since the beginning. It's a move that angered many in the Democratic Party, and we'll talk about that angle in just a second. But first, here's a look at what is in that deal. It funds the federal government through next January, mostly keeping funding at current rates. But here's the interesting part. It also includes several bills to fund things like agricultural programs, military construction, and Veterans Affairs through the full fiscal year, which runs through next September. It also reimburses states for money that they spent to keep SNAP and WIC and other benefits going. And it makes sure that federal workers get back pay and then reinstates federal workers who got laid off notices. Now, the Democratic senators who agreed to the deal say that there was likely no other option.
Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House. And they made clear over a period of weeks, including just this week, that this was as far as they would go as part of the shutdown talks. This was the only deal on the table.
The question was, does the shutdown further the goal of achieving some needed support for the extension of the tax credits? Our judgment was that it would not produce that result. And the evidence for that is almost 7 weeks of fruitless attempts to make that happen. Would it change in a week or another week or after Thanksgiving or Christmas? And there's no evidence that it would.
That's a big win for 2 million federal employees, and added together with these other ingredients of robust appropriations bills and a guaranteed path forward to vote on fixing the ACA, that made me sign on and say, yes, we can do it.
All right, seems like there is a divide in the Democratic Party because many say they believe Americans wanted them to keep fighting. Now, both senators from Michigan, Gary Peters and Alyssa Slotkin, they ended up voting against the measure. And all of Michigan's Democratic congressional representatives say, simply put, it's not good enough. So the top Democrat in the House, New York's Hakeem Jeffries, says that the fight is still on once the bill gets there, while House Speaker Mike Johnson is giving credit to the senators who broke rank.
Well, I don't have much to say about those individuals, and they're going to have to explain themselves to their constituents and to the American people. I certainly believe that Senate Democrats, the overwhelming majority of Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, have waged a valiant fight over the last 7 weeks, defeating the partisan Republican spending bill 14 or 15 different times, week after week after week, and continue to oppose this effort of passing legislation that does not address the Republican health care crisis by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But the fight is getting ready to shift back to the House.
I mean this sincerely. We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics.
All right, so here's the thing. The shutdown's not over yet. And Dave Dulio, Professor Dave Dulio, is going to do a deep dive into this next, this whole issue and the Democratic divide coming up in less than 10 minutes. All right, let's talk about the SNAP benefits we mentioned a couple minutes ago. They have now become a key part of this fight. Court battles, questions about how much people will get and when, all leaving people who rely on these benefits in limbo. And today, the state health department ordered its SNAP vendor to resume full payments for this month, despite the Trump administration telling states to undo those payments. Now, Michiganders can expect their monthly payment in the next couple of days. Meanwhile, a group in Metro Detroit is trying to help. Detroit Grocer Buddy, allowing people to make donations on social media. The organizers tell us it's just the right thing to do.
It feels great, and it feels as though we've been able to reach out to those who can support, but we're really trying to find those that need the support too. And that feels like the barrier that or the wall that we're hitting right now. And we're really hoping that we're able to just spread the word that neighbors want to help.
You have to take care of your neighbors. And it just feels like this is something that everyone should be doing. It's like what we were at one point, and then we became a very individualistic society. And like, that's not what it means to be in community. Community means to be in community with your neighbors, to share groceries, to go across the street and ask for a cup of sugar if you don't have it, instead of getting in your car and driving 50 miles to go buy a whole bag of sugar. So I think this is what we've always been as a society. We're just getting back to it.
For more on how you can get involved, just head to fox2detroit.com. You'll find a link to the Detroit Grocery Buddies Instagram. It's right there. 1 in 8 Americans rely on SNAP benefits, including more than 1 million right here in Michigan. All right, let's go to the Supreme Court. Justices rejected a call to overturn its ruling legalizing same-sex marriage. Now, the justice didn't say why they wouldn't hear Kim Davis's case. She is a former Kentucky clerk. She refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples after the 2015 ruling. She's been trying to get the court to overturn a lower court order, which required her to pay $160,000 to a couple that was denied the license. I caught up with Jay Kaplan. He's with the ACLU of Michigan, who says today's news from the Supreme Court is good.
Very happy. I think the Supreme Court did the right thing. They recognized the legal precedent and what they had said 10 years ago, that marriage is a fundamental constitutional right and that same-sex couples are entitled to that same right and the same protections and benefits associated with marriage. We hope that's the end of it. I mean, this could come back to, to the court somewhere down the line. And we have seen that this is a court majority that doesn't really care what the majority of people think. We saw that with the issue of abortion. Despite the fact that a large majority of people support the right to an abortion, they had no problem overturning 50 years of legal precedent.
You're not really worried about a court overturning the right for gay people to get married, are you?
Oh, I think we should be. I think we should be somewhere down the line given this court.
Stay tuned, as they say. Justice Clarence Thomas is the only one who called for overturning the same-sex marriage ruling. Davis's lawyers repeatedly used those words in their appeal. All right, that's just scratching the surface. So let's pick up the pace and run through some of the other big stories that we're following this hour. First, President Donald Trump has pardoned several people accused of backing his efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss. And those include former personal lawyer Rudy Giuliani, former chief of staff Mark Meadows, and attorney Sidney Powell. So here's the thing. These pardons are mostly symbolic because it only applies to federal crimes. Yet none of the people named were charged at the federal level. So it doesn't really affect the state cases. But cases stemming from that either hit a dead end or are dragging along. President Trump has repeatedly made false claims of voter fraud and claimed that the 2020 election was stolen, yet no evidence of widespread fraud in that year's vote. All right, federal attorneys are trying once again to deport this man, take a look, mistakenly deported to El Salvador earlier this year. They want a federal judge to dissolve an order blocking Kilmar Abrigo Garcia's deportation to Liberia. He's facing charges for human smuggling. His lawyers argue that Abrigo Garcia designated Costa Rica as a country that he's willing to go to and claimed the government must send him there. The Trump administration admitted his first deportation was a mistake, but claims that he's a gang member. Abrigo Garcia's lawyers say there's no evidence of that. All right, let's turn back the clock, turn back the government shutdown right now after the break. Oakland University political science professor Dave Dulio, he's going to break down what the heck is going on. Let's be real. Let's try to figure this out. There's also divide among Democrats. Lots to come. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. All right, back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. All right, here to dive deeper into the government shutdown and that divide Democrats, and there's a whole bunch of other issues here. Oakland University political science professor Dave Dulio. Always good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Charlie.
I appreciate that. Why is the government shut down?
Boy, it's only a half-hour show. Let's give you the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah.
The most basic answer is simply that in September, Congress couldn't do its job. Congress couldn't get its spending bills passed through both chambers and then on to the president.
And there was a deadline, right?
Deadline.
September.
End of the fiscal year, September 30th. New fiscal year, October 1st. Couldn't get their business.
Help me understand. Do the Republicans control the House?
Yes.
Do the Republicans control the Senate?
Yes.
Do the Republicans control the White House?
Yes.
Why can't they get the job done?
Because in the United States Senate, to do anything controversial, to do anything that's debatable even, it takes 60 votes because of it's not even obscure anymore, but a Senate rule that allows any senator to talk for as long as he or she likes about a particular topic, also known as the filibuster.
Would that be called the filibuster?
That's right. And
why do we have the filibuster?
That goes back more than 100 years.
Right.
The filibuster, when it's utilized, I'll say correctly, and actually that's not even fair, because I think this is what the Democrats were after this time. The filibuster, when used by the minority party, and that's what it is always used by, right? This was Democrats.
Well, it has to be.
Yes, for sure.
Logically, it has to be.
It is intended to create some compromise, right? Because Republicans they don't have enough votes to overcome a filibuster all by themselves. They needed 8 Democrats to come over. So what the filibuster would normally do is say for the Republicans to the Democrats, hey, look, what can we do to this bill to make it more palatable for you to come over and vote for us?
I think you said it forces parties to compromise.
Correct.
And it's been around for 100 years. Okay, I get it. Now, what is it that Democrats want that they're not getting in this?
What they have said from the beginning is that they wanted those Obamacare tax credits, those Obamacare subsidies to be extended beyond this year.
Is that part of the budget?
It used to be.
It was. But
it was. These were COVID era extra dollars that were made available to folks who were buying Obamacare insurance on that
to help people pay for their premiums.
That's right.
Why won't the Republicans agree to that?
You'd have to ask them, but I think what they would say is, look, we're trying to find ways to trim the budget. We're trying to find ways to cut spending. Now, and they would also say, too, that, well, look, Democrats, you passed this bill. How come you sunsetted these provisions after so many years? Why didn't you just extend them indefinitely? So I think that it may have been a mistake on the part of the Democrats when they passed this legislation in 2021.
We had a procedural vote this last weekend. It seems that there's at least 8 Democrats now that are voting with the Republican majority in the Senate to get to that magic 60 number.
Right.
And they got it.
Yep.
Right? I guess they do.
They did.
That's just a procedural vote.
Correct.
So you got to get to the procedure before you can get the bill out of the Senate anyway.
That's right.
And then it will go to the House.
And here's the thing. You don't need 60 votes when it comes to final passage.
Yeah.
Many of those 8, I would imagine you'd see at least some of them vote against the final bill.
Yeah, that's
and then
weird.
From there, it's got to go to the House. It should sail through that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, and then on to the president.
Why is the Democratic leadership upset at those 8 senators, those Democratic senators?
Because they want their party to vote together as a bloc. They want party discipline.
Which is
and they didn't get it.
But it's never good. If they did that, a filibuster would last forever.
That's true, and it lasted for 40-some days in this last round. So, and this is really where that the tension in the Democratic Party lies, right? Because everybody else on the Democratic side in the Senate voted against it. They're mad at those 8 that crossed over for giving Republicans a win.
Which party stands to lose more because of this, Republicans or Democrats?
Democrats.
Why would you say that?
Oh, for 2 reasons. Number one, they have uncovered this split in their party. The Democratic base is just furious with Democrats on Capitol Hill, at least these 8, for giving in. And I also think too that the Republicans are going to go to their constituents and the country and say, look, we had this deal on the table in September. Democrats are the ones that extended it for 40 days.
But didn't we just have an election just the other day where Democrats did better than Republicans?
They did, absolutely.
Well, it seems like it's hurting the Republicans then.
Oh, there's lots of reasons beyond the shutdown that went into those Democratic victories last Tuesday.
I get about a minute here real quick. People are flying on airplanes. They're coming into Detroit, out of Detroit. If the government shutdown continues, do you think that we have a serious problem that the air traffic control in this country could stop?
Oh, I can't imagine that would happen.
But severely restricted.
Well, and I think that was the fear. I think that was why you saw some of these Democrats finally decide to cut a deal, and a limited deal that they had, right? They didn't want this going any further and coming up against Thanksgiving.
President Trump's going to give the air traffic controllers that stay a $10,000 bonus. Can he do that?
Probably not, but there's lots of stuff that the president says that he can do.
When are we going to get another vote? What do you think is going to happen this week? We're going to finalize it?
Shutdown will be over Thursday or Friday. However, we are going to be back in this same position at the end of January. That's, as you mentioned at the top of the show, this only goes through January 30th, and then we've got to do the same thing all over again.
Well, don't be a stranger. We'll have you back here to talk about why it's only going to January. Professor Dave Dulio, Oakland University, political science. Take your class. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we're going to do a deep dive now. The SNAP benefits, a big battle, but from a different angle. Right after the break, the owner of a well-known Detroit meat market now says that his business is being impacted. What is that all about? The Pulse, back in 3 minutes. It's people, power, and politics. Welcome back to Detroit's only nightly political talk show, The Pulse. We're going to do a deep dive now into SNAP benefits, the battle impacting businesses. Like this guy's, Ronnie Bedway, the owner of Ronnie's Meats in Eastern Market. Always good to see you. You've got great meat products, your steaks, your pork chops, your ribs. What did I miss? Did I miss anything?
You're missing lamb, Charlie. Otherwise, you covered it all. Yep.
That's right. Is it your most popular seller?
I would say pork and beef are most dominant, but lamb is, we're Lebanese, so there's a little of that Middle Eastern flair as well.
And you guys have been your grandfather started it, didn't he?
Yep, my grandfather and my grandmother opened business in 1967 with a butcher block and a few dollars worth of change and a line of credit. Just living the American dream and built it into something that we're here today, 3 generations later.
It's a great story that your family has, but the reality is that a large part of your business, your customers, have bridge cards, which are basically SNAP benefits bridge cards, right? Yep. What percentage would you say of your business is bridge card customers?
Believe it or not, 60% of our sales.
60%?
Yeah, so more than half of our sales rely on that program, given that we're in the inner city and the majority of our clientele. We have a good suburban clientele on the weekends with the open air market, with Eastern Market, but Monday through Friday is primarily people that live within 3 miles of our shop.
So what percentage of your business is down, would you say, because of this SNAP disaster that we're talking about?
So just a good example of it, last Monday through Thursday, we were down roughly 50 to 60%, and we did as much business on Friday once the federal court asked the state to release those benefits. So it created kind of a back-heavy week, which we were excited to see the benefits released, but it also created a little uncertainty in the meantime.
So I don't know that, and I understand if I understand your business. If you bridge cards, first of all, bridge cards, they're loaded up at certain times. Everyone has a bridge card, but they're not all loaded up. You don't get loaded up from whatever you get per person. They stagger the amounts, right? Some of the first day, second day, third, fourth, fifth.
Yeah, so depending on your name, you're assigned an identification number from the state of Michigan. And we see business on the 3rd through the 21st. On the odd days, those benefits are released to our clientele.
So you know then, in the first part of the month, you're going to need more supply, more food, and you're probably going to have more customers, I would think, right?
Yep, certainly.
And some people can carry the money. If you don't use all the money, you can carry over the next month, right?
Sure, it doesn't expire, it does carry forward, but in our experience, the majority of our customers spend most of it each month and don't usually carry a balance forward.
Your suppliers, because you don't make the meat, you get it from a supplier. Did you have an issue with suppliers? Did you call them up and say, I'm not going to order as much meat, you're down 50% or so?
Well, you know, half our day we're looking down an empty aisle earlier in the week wondering what's wrong, and then looking and watching the news, and instead of telling people how to grill a steak or smoke a slab of back ribs, we're watching TV trying to see if the Senate's going to pass a resolution bill, which it appears they have this weekend, and it appears there's going to be the House will approve that bill, but there's still this element of uncertainty that makes it tough to staff our store as well as procure product from our suppliers.
This may be a dumb question, but I would imagine meat has a short lifespan, right? You can't hold meat forever, right?
Yeah.
What's happening with the meat that's not being used?
So we just kind of take it day by day right now, and in the short term, we can run a lower inventory given that it is a perishable good, and we're trying to set 90 feet of fresh counter daily. But if this were to extend and prolong, it would create more uncertainty, which would make there's seismic effects to it. It affects us at a business level, but it also moves up the supply chain to our wholesalers.
How frustrated are you? And in the next, you get 15 seconds or so, how do you want this to end?
Charlie, I'd rather just tell people how to prepare meat and sell them the best product and serve them as well as we can, instead of watching politicians in Washington argue over something that seems pretty reasonable to come to an agreement to.
Ronnie Bedway, owner of Ronnie's Meats in Eastern Market, great place. I've been there many times, but the reality is that your business is down because of this. Let's all hope that we can get this government to open up and you can do your job and people can eat. That's the other thing. That's the Pulse for tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Charlie Langton. Have a good night.